Have you ever left a meeting thinking, wait, did that just happen? Did I misunderstand? Or was my point just dismissed like it didn't matter? If you have, you might have experienced what we're going to talk about in this episode.
Welcome back to The Leadership. I'm Catherine.
And I'm Camilla. And this is where we talk about leadership in a human and sometimes, messy way like leadership is.
Absolutely. Today we're talking about a very sensitive topic, actually. We're talking about gaslighting at work, what it looks like in everyday leadership situation, why it is so damaging, and also what leaders can do to stop it even when it's only subtle or sometimes even unintentionally.
Yes. And you know what? Gaslighting doesn't always look dramatic. Often it kind of shows up in these subtle behaviors.
Yeah.
It can be in meetings, it can be in emails, it can come up in jokes, it can come up in decisions. And over time, what it does is that it erodes confidence in the team, right? And also trust and performance.
Absolutely. So let's be really clear about actually what we mean when we're talking about gaslighting. So gaslighting is a pattern of behavior we sometimes experience where we might have a perception or a contribution and it's repeatedly dismissed or questioned, the point where we are starting to doubt ourselves of what we say, of our confidence, and if what we do actually matters.
Yeah, exactly. That's spot on. And why it's really harmful is that, it's not always intentional. You as a leader can actually do this without meaning to do so through kind of your habits, your language, and, more importantly, by not stepping in if it happens in the room.
Yeah. And the impact, however, even though not done intentionally, is very real. People stop speaking up, ideas disappear, confidence really drops, and psychological safety really, really drops.
It does. So I think we probably need to get to some really specific examples.
Yeah, many leaders will recognize these examples.
Yeah, I do think they will. And the first one I've actually experienced, and that's making someone invisible. And the way that this came out is that we were in a meeting and we were having a strategic discussions on what to focus on. And I shared an idea that I'd shared with my leader previously where there was no response. So the leader kind of continued talking and no one really responded. And then you had 10 minutes later, someone else mentioned exactly the same idea. And suddenly it landed. Maybe it was said in a different way. Anyway, it was picked up, right? And it really became the idea. And imagine, I was so annoyed.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And what did you start doing? Were you you were annoyed, but did you start thinking oh, maybe I wasn't clear? And you just said it basically oh, maybe it was put in a different way.
Yeah, I don't know. At that moment, I didn't do anything. I just really got annoyed. And you know what? It really made me feel like I didn't want to contribute to the discussion afterwards because I felt so disappointed, in what had happened. And it did happen again, actually, later on. And what I did at that point was really to address it. And that helped.
Oh, okay. What did you do to address it?
Well, I just said, that's kind of similar to what I just mentioned. So it wasn't harder than that. And then the leader kind of built on it. I did talk to this person before the meeting as well, or after the other meeting and before this meeting.
Oh, it was the same person, actually.
It was the same person.
Okay. So, and that is quite of the learning as well. And if you are the leader in that situation, your role is to notice and amplify it. Something as simple as saying, oh, I want to get back to Camilla's point, what she just made, that was really important, can actually completely change how that person is feeling about themselves, about actually the situation in the room and the environment in the room as well.
Exactly.
Atmosphere, not environment.
Yeah. And if you feel yourself in the position that I was, where your idea was kind of overseen, I do recommend when you address it with your leader in the room, kind of do it with no drama and no accusation, because if not, people are going to become
defensive,
right? Yeah. So another common one is to ridicule or dismiss dismissive humor, you could say. And this is kind of when someone shares an idea and it's met with a joke or a sarcastic comment by someone else. So people kind of laugh at what was said and the person, but the person who came with the idea obviously does not think this is funny.
Yeah, and to be fair, they might be laughing as well. So they might be still like join in with the laughter, but deep down they're thinking like, oh, it was so funny, because they don't want to feel left out. And I think you might be listening to this and think like, oh, how can someone do this? This is so obvious. But believe me, there are hundreds of situations that I have observed where this actually has happened. And there was probably a couple of things where I've been the one making a dismissive joke. It can happen easier and easily, and it might be sometimes happen even in the gist, but it's still harmful as well. And sometimes this kind of humor also sends a really clear message, even when unintended. And it basically says, this is not a safe place to say things out aloud. And I luckily haven't personally experienced this very often, but when people describe it, the impact is always the same. And as you said, like, they're going quieter. And now you are quite a confident person, but I can imagine if there's someone else who is quite introvert anyway, a little bit shyer, that will have a massive impact about what they are.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, if you're on the receiving end of this and your experience is this, I mean, what you can say, if you dare, if it's appropriate to do it in the moment, to say, I'd actually like the idea to be discussed, or can you elaborate on that? Or what was funny is probably a little bit too confrontive, depending on kind of the joke. But again, don't let it pass, and especially not if it's happened a couple of times, right?
Yeah.
And obviously you can talk to your leader as well after the meeting.
Yeah, absolutely. And another one that many people might recognize, especially in our hybrid working world, that I like to say is withholding information. And again, maybe not intentionally, maybe you just weren't there, maybe you weren't in the office, maybe it was a conversation that happened on another virtual call, but you suddenly realize decisions have been made or updates have been shared you haven't been able to pick up on, or you weren't part of.
Yeah, I've experienced that as well.
Oh, gosh,
I mean, people,
I think everyone has.
like, intentionally withholding information from me, meaning we've been in a meeting, we discussed something, we agreed on something, and then that person calls someone, agrees on something totally different for whatever reason, because I wasn't privy to the information.
Yeah.
And then I'm told afterwards, after the things have been put in motion, and the decision was different. There was a lot of information I was not told. And you also have situations where you're not told before you go into meetings where decisions are made.
Yeah.
Where therefore you cannot contribute, right?
Yeah. And it's quite easy to avoid that, right? You just have to be, as a leader, and I know it sounds boring, now it kind of like sounds the same. It's be transparent, make it transparency your default, be clear on the decisions, share notes, share after meeting notes, and you don't really have an excuse with AI being able to do your meeting notes, so you don't even have to do it while you're writing or spend some time after the meeting to do it. And really quieten down side conversation. Sometimes someone said to me kind of like, the environment is toxic if someone always says in meetings, it's like, let's take this offline, or let's take this another time, because that is where trust gets eroded really quite quickly.
It does. And if you're the one experiences that, information is withheld from you or from others, a very neutral thing to say is that, can we share that update with the whole group over an email, or can we bring it into the next meeting to give an update? So just really to make sure that information is brought into the open, like Catherine said, because sometimes the leader of the team might not always know all of the things happening below the surface either. So they might want to do something about it if they know, but if no one tells them.
Yeah. The next kind of like behavior that we're seeing is quite damaging. And to be fair, we see a lot of women struggling with this. And I'm sure there are a lot of campaigns out there that you would have seen. But it's almost a double bind, is if you are too quiet, or if you don't speak up, you are too quiet. And if you speak up, you are too much. It's like being in this uncomfortable position.
Yeah, and it's hard position to be in because you're getting mixed signals, right? And I think a way to address that if you're in that situation is really to say, I am getting mixed signals. Can we talk about what's actually expected here, or what's actually happening, or so you really can get to the surface of it.
Yeah, and as a leader, it is important to stay open to talk about this and not dismissing that behavior. And this is where focusing on what is being said is also important, rather than how it's being said, and that can make a huge impact as well.
It can.
Yeah.
And then there is one last one that I do want to cover, and that's the blame and shame.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And this is kind of coming up when people are criticized for things that are outside of their control. So this one, it really sticks. It's kind of being told, directly or indirectly, like, this is on you, where maybe it was the system that failed. And what really helps here, if you're experiencing that, is to separating the person from the problem, right? So instead of, if you're a leader, to say, Catherine, you dropped the ball, maybe look at instead, like, something in the process didn't work. Let's explore that, or let's discuss that, or let's have a discussion about that.
Yeah. And if you're on the receiving end and you need to think about your response, one of the grounding responses can be kind of like, I'm happy to look at a solution that helps us moving forward.
Yeah, I really like that one, because it brings kind of the forward-looking, you take more the negative emotions out of it.
It's more solution focused as well.
It is.
Let's also address it. It's quite hard to do because it feels awkward when someone says, like, or blames you.
Of course.
And it's not the right thing to do. So it's almost being the bigger person here.
Yeah. And but if it's happening once, it might be easier to have, like, to be the bigger person and look at solutions. But if it's something that's happening continuously, that's a discussion you really need to have with your leader, or if you're a leader, with a team member who is doing that. So don't shy away from those discussions, because, like Catherine mentioned earlier, by not stepping in, by not addressing those things, you're allowing that toxic behavior to become part of your team culture, which again will erode trust.
Absolutely. And this is where actually conscious leadership comes in, right? Conscious leader pay attention to not just to outcomes, but also to how the work happens, how the behaviors show up.
Yeah. And to make it easier for you leaders to remember, we've created a framework that we've just called Notice, Name, and Normalize. And it's very simple. So first, you notice patterns, who speaks up, who doesn't, whose ideas are getting picked up, what behaviors get rewarded, and which behaviors are getting ignored or even punished. Yeah. And then you name what you see. So not in an accusing way or anything like that, but in a grounding way. So I want to pause now and see how that landed, or let's make sure we're hearing all the voices. It really makes sure that you're including everyone, or that you're addressing whatever behavior shouldn't be there in the moment.
Yeah, or things like, I've noticed I haven't heard all the voices in the room.
Yeah.
Or have I maybe missed something that has been said?
Exactly.
That you want to kind of like re-emphasize. And because sometimes in a room full of people, everyone's attention sometimes drops when we're talking, right? So you might have genuinely missed it, but that gives them a chance to say something again.
Yeah.
And then the third one is about normalizing respectful challenge. Make it clear that speaking up, questioning and disagreeing is part of a healthy team and how a team works. So we always say this kind of like that conflict is really crucial, and for me that is being respectfully challenged.
Absolutely. And there are 3 very practical ways or things that leaders can do for this. So the first one is to set clear team norms early.
Yeah. I think that is, to be fair, when doing a team coaching, one of the first thing is like, what are our ways of working? What do we want to adhere to? What is important to us? And it always comes up to talk about challenges, challenge each other, and so on and so forth. We just need to kind of like guardrails what that looks, because it can look different for different people.
And we've used a lot of examples on people coming with ideas. So if I were to translate what you said into the situation of someone, coming up with an idea, is agreeing on how do we treat ideas, how do we give credit, and how do we disagree? Because disagreement is important, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Then second
is, model the behavior that you want.
Yeah.
So ask for feedback, admit mistakes, and amplify the quieter voices, like we both mentioned. Like, let's make sure we're hearing everyone in the room. You can literally say that in a meeting.
Yeah, and the third one, surprise, surprise, psychological safety. Make it clear that people won't be punished for speaking up honestly. The safer people feel, the more they will be able to challenge respectfully as well, and the more power is in the room.
It really is. So the thing is, if people are experiencing these gaslighting behaviors, like, they're going to disengage, they're going to be quiet, and what you're missing out on is potentially really good ideas and perspectives. So learning how to address that in the room as a leader or afterwards and model right behaviors can really make a difference on the performance of the team.
Yeah. And to be fair, I've worked in culture where ridiculing was almost normalized. It was just part of who we are, just part of work. It was, just humor, and it just get laughed away. But when I then became a leader, one of the things that, and I'm someone who can really take banter, and I'm really good at bantering, and taking it and also receiving it. But I wanted to make it clear that as a team, we laugh together and not at each other. And that is really important, especially when there are different cultures in the room, because humor can be taken in different nuances. I mean, I'm German. We're not known to have humor, apparently, but it is. And I said it, and I notice at some point some people don't get when I say something in gist, so I have to be being really sensitive. And some people and some cultures just have a different humor, and you don't want them to feel like you hurt them.
Exactly. So if we summarize this, so gaslighting at work often shows up as making people feel invisible, ridiculed, withholding information, double binds, and blame and shame.
Yeah. And conscious leadership is about noticing these patterns when they happen, and actively shaping the culture and where they don't thrive. So really speak up, notice them, and respectfully challenge.
Exactly. So here's a simple challenge for this week. In your next few meetings, observe who speaks, who gets interrupted, whose ideas move forward. And if you notice something,
take one small action, really. Amplify the voice, redirect humor, share information openly, and small interventions can make a small difference as well. And
absolutely.
And for me, it's also, I feel we should do another episode. It's like, what should we do if you are a victim of gaslighting and you're stuck in that way because no one notices?
Absolutely.
I feel.
So comment on your observations and your experiences and tell us what you want to hear about in the episode. And before we wrap up,
if this resonates with you, and you think another leader might find this really useful, please share this with them, because it helps us just spread practical leadership stories.
So that's it for today's episode of The Leadership Effect. Until next time, lead with curiosity
and courage.